we ain't got all day for that. And I think you'll find we have a lot in common with this. I do want to ask that, again, that you show me grace. I had a really interesting encounter when I first started reading the whole Bible. You'll find that people are offended. There are some people who are offended that you're reading the whole Bible. It's one of those crazy things. I had people send me emails, messages. I had one person find my address and send a letter to my home telling me they were worried for my soul, and I wasn't supposed to be reading that part of the Bible, that wasn't for us. I'm sorry, that just stops my heart. How can we say that the words of our Father are not relevant to us? He is the source of wisdom, and he says, I am God, I do not change. And how can we possibly dismiss his word? That just kills me. But I had this one lady, a flurry of messages on Facebook one day, and I was trying to be kind. I wasn't really going much into a conversation because she wasn't seeking a conversation. She was seeking to tell me her predetermined judgments. And she said, and I said, look, we believe the same thing. We're of one accord in many things. And she said, well, what do you believe? She said, you believe you're saved by works. I said, no, ma'am. I am saved by grace alone. I said, there is nothing I could do to earn my salvation. I am saved by grace alone. And she said, well, what do you believe? And so I just, the line, I'm saved by grace alone, through faith in our Messiah. But once that happens, a change takes place in my life. And then I want to line up with him. So I'm thinking I have assuaged her fears here, and I'm thinking everything's cool. I come to find out the next day, she goes and tells everybody that I didn't believe in baptism. Because I didn't tell her, I didn't, and I thought, my goodness. So I just want to tell y'all, you're seeing 30 minutes of my walk. I'm seeking him daily, and any wisdom I have, anything that is helpful to you is from him, and that's why we're here, to encourage one another. I have been so encouraged to meet all of you. I have never been in a group of such wholehearted people in my life, and it is just, I got goosebumps thinking about it. It's just amazing to be able to be in your presence. Everybody's just so wholehearted, and I want to take a moment, and is Amy in here? I think she had to step out. Well, make sure Amy worked so hard on this, and this is her vision, this is her passion, and we just need to make sure we build her up and encourage her and thank her. She keeps saying, what are you hearing? Is it okay? Is the feedback okay? So we want to make sure we build her up. So this is a very exciting time to be a believer. This is amazing. The pace at which the Father is working to bring people around to all of this. The shingles, the rate at which they are falling, boom, 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 boom. It's crazy. And it's so exciting to be able to be part of this. I spent my whole life as a believer, but I want to show y'all, and I know y'all understand this. I spent my whole life as a believer. Ooh, I'm gonna have to. With this whole book, and I read this part. Because I was taught that this part didn't apply to me. Woo, goodness. That's just blasphemous. That just blows me away. So let me tell you how I became a believer. When I was 12, I had a friend who I always knew. I'd heard about Jesus my whole life. I knew who God was. I had a golden book with hymns. I knew all the words. My parents didn't go to church or anything. And my sister and I found out there was a foster home 2 doors down, and the church would send a van for them. And we wanted to go too because church was fun. And so we started walking down to the foster home and hopping the van to church. I think they thought we were kids in the foster home, but we were there. We stayed at that church for years until we were old enough to drive, and then we drove ourselves. But so when I was 12, I was told that all I had to do to be a Christian was to recite a prayer, which I've still not found in this. I've read this several times. I've still not seen that prayer. All I had to do was recite a prayer, and then I had to be a good person. Okay, so that was kind of left up to me to determine what is the standard of a good person, because I didn't know to read this. No one directed me to this. And you know what? It's my own fault that I didn't do that. It is my own fault. I do show myself grace because the Father showed me grace because I was a child. And He held me close to Him. And by His grace, compassion, mercy mostly, He brought me to Him. He led me to Him. So I'm very grateful for that. But when I started seeing this, like I said last night, I was so hungry for the Word. I was so hungry for the Word. And I sat in church and and my husband, he loves, okay, y'all, we're all different types of people and it's okay. All right, I'm just letting you know. My husband is a worship music person. He wants to sit there. He wants them churches with the fog machines and everything. And he'll sit there and he will go through 10 worship songs and then he's happy to go home. He's done half his service. He's good. I'm sitting here like, how many more songs are we going to sing? Where's the Bible? Can we not sing? Where's the Bible? Can we not just read the Bible here? How many more songs? And I get so anxious. Like, I sing in my car, okay? I get it. But I just want the Word. And it just got worse and worse. And my church at that time sang 4 worship songs, and they was long ones. And then our pastor would get up, who I have great respect for and I love, and that was a great starting ground for us. And he'll say 1 or 2 verses, and then he tells you a story about how to be a good person. And then they'll close with a verse, and that's it. I was starving. And I couldn't figure out where to get the meat. And so I kept saying, Father, there's got to be something more. There's got to be something more. One of the big things that changed my life was there's a book called The Biblical Feast by Robin Sampson. The first 15 pages of that book, the introduction. I homeschool, so I got it just for homeschooling, just to learn about the Biblical Feast. Just the first 15 pages, the introduction, changed everything because she talked about the Biblical Feast. And she explains in a very non-judgmental way how, they've never been done away with, and these are important to the Father. And if they're important to Him, why aren't they important to us? And I've written a post about the Biblical Feast on my blog. And I said, imagine that your Father throws 7 parties a year. And He goes all out to throw these feasts. And He invites you. And you can't be bothered to go. And so every time He throws one of these feasts, He looks out that window and He knows He'll never see you pulling up in His driveway. And then imagine His neighbor throws this one feast a year, one party, and declares it better than all your daddy's parties combined. And your Father looks out and He sees you pulling up there. And I realized it's not about what's important to me. What's important to Him should be important to me. It should be important to me. And that really, all my life I've been taught, He knows our heart. He knows our heart. That should scare us. I've learned that He knows my heart. Very few situations, that's a good thing. Unless we are wholeheartedly after Him. Wholeheartedly. So what happens when we start seeing this? Because, we all had that moment we started seeing it's like, oh my goodness, I begged the Father, I need the meat. And He fed it to me. And I started reading the Bible, and I started seeing things I'd never seen before. Starting in Genesis, you see that things are not what they say they are. What I've been told was in the Bible. But one of the things that I always like to tell people is, how many of each animal did Noah take onto the ark? And they'll say 2. I'm like, now I know you haven't read it. And then I'll say, and when you read how many of each animal He actually did take onto the ark, ask yourself what the difference was. Then ask yourself who taught Him the difference. And we just go from there and it just builds. But when we see this, what happens? We go through stages of grief. Shock, jubilation, horror. We've lived our whole lives thinking we were living for Him, thinking that He knew our heart and that was good enough. Well, the Israelites, they declared that golden calf was him. He wasn't too happy about that, was he? Betrayal. I was very hurt. And this is an immature response on my part. I was very hurt that pastors and teachers had not told me this, had not tried to get me in the Word, had not tried to teach me these things, had not been teaching the fullness of His truth. However, that wasn't their job. In a way it is, we got some, I believe it's Matthew 15 stuff going on there. Whoever teaches that these commandments, are done away with. Yeah, anyway. Whoever breaks the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same. I'm not sure exactly which one. I think that's Matthew 15, but I don't know.
But there's a millstone involved.
Huh?
But there's a millstone involved.
But it was my responsibility. I'm really big on personal responsibility. When I mess up, guess who messed up? Me. Guess who made the decision? Guess who decided not to do the homework? Guess who took the easy way out because she wanted the Cliff Notes version? That was me. And so I went through all these stages and I was very angry. And then what do? Well, this is crucial. We do what our heart yearns to do. We look around for others who don't know, and we want to show it to them as well. But at this point, we're outraged, we're full of emotion, we're on a roller coaster, and we're like that person when they realize a building is on fire and they go around and tell everybody, the building's on fire, the building's on fire. And then comes the second drop, the rejection. And from there comes more shock, more betrayal, more anger, and even more rejection. When people start seeing this, I had a lady, and I don't, all I do is I lead people to read the Bible. And that's all the Father said I had to do, lead people through the Bible. He's going to show them. Y'all would not believe how many people are messaging me all week long. Oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm seeing this, and they're asking questions and stuff. And this one lady, a couple weeks ago, she's like, I can't, today, it all just started making sense. All the pieces came together. When my husband comes home, I'm going to tell him everything, and we're going to start keeping Sabbath and moving. And I said, okay, slow down. And I'm like, you need to slow down, you need to take some time, and you need to gird yourself. Because you are going to be rejected by people that you love so dearly, and it's going to come from the people you least expect it to come from. I talked to a friend this morning, we were talking about how we had left the church searching for something different, and they had been escorted out of their church. And I think that's an all too common thing as well. We forget ourselves. We were where they are 5 spiritual minutes ago. And we have some training to do. And that takes time. Or to put it in Southern speak, people tell you, I was trying to witness to them and I was on fire and I was telling them and they wouldn't hear it from me and they rejected me. You say, well, you're on fire all right, but it's too hot to cook anything. There's a passage, let me make sure, I'm trying to kind of keep track of time. Oh, we're good, I think. There's a passage in Leviticus 19, 23 through 25. Now, it's a little out of context, but hear me out, okay? When you come into the land and plant any kind of tree for food, then you shall regard its fruit as forbidden. 3 years it shall be forbidden to you. It must not be eaten. And in the 4th year, all its fruit shall be holy, an offering of praise to the Father. But in the 5th year, you may eat of its fruit, to increase its yield for you. For I am Yahweh your God. That was Leviticus 19, 23 through 25. Only this group of people talks about, ooh, Leviticus, I love that book. I just got 13,000 people excited for Deuteronomy, so I started thinking about this, and I read that, and I thought, oh, too hot to cook anything just yet. We need time. And I quickly retreated back, really quick, into the Word, because I realized I don't have the foundational knowledge to back up what I know to be true. I have to go into training for a while. And one of the things I had to realize is the Father does not rely on us to get his message out. He is the only one who can remove those shingles. For many of us, we spend a lifetime reading one part of the Word. And now he has called us to mature. It's like when a toddler starts eating solid food. You don't just give them a little bit of that watered down rice cereal one day. My kids are way older. I don't know what y'all give them now. But that little rice cereal one day, and the next day say, great, they took their first bite. Here's a steak. You don't just have a toddler take their first step, and then the next day you sign them up for a marathon. It takes time. So how do we do it? How do we reach out to them? The Father has always given me two examples, as I mentioned last night, of the right way to do things and the wrong way to do things. For most of us, if you're like me, he let me start with the wrong way. Let's lead with that. But he has also put people in my lives who were patient, who were loving, who directed me to the Word without judgment. There were a lot of people that I would ask questions because, of course, when you start realizing this, you want answers to all your questions immediately. And I would say, what? Tell me this, how do I explain this? And they would just say, just keep reading, just keep reading. And I really did not like those people at the time because I thought, it just takes too long. I want to know right now. Just keep reading. And then there are people who, y'all know, we call them Torah terrorists. Y'all know who they are. Y'all, you've met people like this. I'm not talking about anyone in particular. But we've all met people like this. And you can do no right unless you follow them exactly and do exactly as they are doing. Because they've decided that they are right. And you know, as people seeking the wisdom of the Father, we're not seeking to be right. We're seeking what is right. So in that line of thinking, here is how we don't share this. First of all, we have to put aside our personal outrage because it is misdirected. They didn't know, but don't forget that we didn't know either. We have to be careful and mindful of righteous indignation because that is one of the easiest ways that the adversary can distract and deter us. And he uses it to send people away from us. But when we send them away with our actions, we are not just sending them away from us. We are sending them away from his truth. A lot of times, and I want y'all to really think about this, a lot of times when we think we're starting righteous fires, what we're really doing is burning bridges that others might have taken to get to the Father. That weighs very heavily on me. For perspective, in Numbers 11:21, Moses said, here I am with 600,000 men on foot, and yet you say I will give them meat to eat for a whole month? If whole flocks and herds were slaughtered for them, would it be enough? If all the fish in the sea were collected for them, would even that be enough? And the Father answered Moses, has my arm grown too short? Now you will see whether what I said will happen or not. I love that when I read that in the Bible, I was like, whew, you think I can't do this? You have seen everything I've done. You really think that I can't do this. You think I can't speak a word and do this. And I think we really lose that perspective in our zeal to serve him and in our zeal to spread his truth. There's a fine line between wanting to do a good thing and remaining in his will, doing it his way. We cannot witness to the world in the ways that the world tempts us to do so. Uncontrolled, untempered, unrestrained. Flesh run wild. But since it's for the Father, we can just claim it's Spirit-led. We often justify our uncontrolled flesh by saying, well, but Messiah flipped tables. Guess what? We ain't Messiah. We forget ourselves. And the Father has asked different things of us. Hallelujah. We cannot go around acting like Yahweh only works in our lives and not in theirs. And like we can override whatever his plan is with our sheer force of will of wanting them to see it right now. We have to ask ourselves, and this is something I really had to work on. because I was very wounded with all this. Are we mad and hurt because they rejected him? Or are we mad and hurt because they rejected us? In Romans 12, Paul says, bless those who persecute you. Bless them, don't curse them. Rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. Be sensitive to each other's needs. Don't think yourself better than others, but make humble people your friends. Don't be conceited. Repay no one evil for evil, but try to do what everyone regards as good. If possible, and to the extent that it depends on you, live in peace with all people. Never seek revenge, my friends. Instead, leave that to the Father's anger. For in the Tanakh it is written, Yahweh says, vengeance is my responsibility. I will repay. On the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. For by doing this, you will heap fiery coals of shame on his head. Do not be conquered by evil, but conquer evil with good. We read the Bible and we realize all that we were doing wrong and all that we weren't doing that's right. And we get it in our heads that we have to cram this down everybody's throat. Or as my husband says, sometimes we get a little bit of knowledge and we use it as a hammer to beat people over the head with. And then there's a short-sighted arrogance of it. And y'all, I'm speaking purely personal experience here, okay? Do we really think he can't turn someone else without us stepping in where he has not directed us to go? So now I'm going to give you, I think I got number 7, maybe 6, I don't know. Things that we can do to share this. Number 1, check your motive. Why do we want to share this? We want to share this out of love. Finally, we found the meat. We understand grace, and we are living in a fuller measure of His grace than ever before. But that initial rejection from those of us who made the mistake of coming out too hot and burning those around us can taint our motive, even in subtle ways. And it is our responsibility to be aware of that. Sometimes when we don't heal, we bleed on those who never cut us. We have to take this to the Father. Our motive should be to bring them to the Father so that they can know the fullness of grace and love that come from obedience. Number 2, check your heart. We must have a genuine love for people in order to witness to them. I have a friend on Facebook, his name is Matthew Jensen. He's a pastor in Georgia. And he posted something last week. I love him. He's a very gentle person. But he's got some fire. We have no right to speak a rebuke or critically into a person's life if we never spoke words of encouragement or positivity as well. Some folks just love to rebuke without ever building up. There is a time for both. But if you aren't willing to be an encourager to someone, you don't get to be the rebuker of that someone. When I first started this, I had this anguish cry within me. They don't know, they don't know, they don't know. And I would want to go around and just tell people as many as possible. And as that has been tempered, as I have grown in wisdom, that they don't know has changed to, they don't know. They don't know. We have to learn to love people more. And in order to do so, we have to learn to see them through His eyes. That is something, if you haven't specifically asked for that, I want to encourage you to do so. Ask the Father to help you love people the way He loves people, to help you see people how He sees them. That is so very important. A lot of times we use the Bible in our culture as a microscope to examine others. It's not meant to be that way. It's a mirror, and we should be examining ourselves through it. Number 3, we have to check our fruit. Our fruit. Galatians, I think it's 5:22. Yeah, 5:22 through 23. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, humility, and self-control. Nothing in the Torah stands against such things. Now here's my analogy I always think of. The Father's planting seeds, okay? We don't know. Anybody you come into contact with, we don't know at what stage they're at in their growth. They could be a freshly planted seed. They could be a tiny little sprout. They could be a plant with its first leaf. They could be a tree about to bear fruit. We don't know. And so, depending on how we interact with them, we could poison that soil. However, if we treat everybody in line with these fruits of the Spirit, no matter what stage of development they're at, we're going to fertilize them. We're going to nourish them, and we're going to leave them better off than when we found them. So I try to keep all of my interactions with people in line with the fruits of the Spirit, especially people outside this walk. Be very gentle, very careful with them. Number 4, check your language. Now, y'all have noticed I go back and forth between terms a lot because I lead a Facebook group of people, and we're from all walks. They're from all walks. I try not to ever say the Father's name out loud because I don't want them to just say, oh, that's how you pronounce it. I want everybody to search for themselves and decide for themselves. I do use the tetragrammaton in my notes and in my writing and stuff. There's that little disclaimer. Okay, check your language. A lot of us tend to speak Hebrewish. I love Hebrewish. It's fun, it's kind of cool, and to be honest, there's a lot of words that carry a much deeper meaning. Our words have been diluted. Repentance. Oh, just to feel sorry for something. Teshuva. To turn from our ways and to turn to the Father's ways. I love that. I've learned so much. Peace versus shalom. I love it. But it makes people outside of this walk feel stupid. And it makes it look like we think we are superior. We have to speak their language. Regardless of our motive, it really does come off as haughty. And so I may speak one language in my fellowship group, and like our private fellowship group, in my Facebook fellowship group, I tell a different language. If they call him God, is he not God? I know he has a personal name, and I'm so grateful that he revealed it to us. But he's been so patient with me. How can we not be with others as well? We have to operate in the fruit, and I call this doing daily fruit checks. Every now and then I'll post on Facebook, fruit check. 1 Corinthians 9 says, "For although I am a free man, not bound to do anyone's bidding, I have made myself a slave to all in order to win as many people as possible." That is, with the Jews, what I did was put myself in the position of a Jew in order to win Jews. With people in subjection to a legalistic perversion of the Torah, I put myself in the position of someone under such legalism in order to win those under this legalism. Even though I myself am not in subjection to a legalistic perversion of the Torah. With those who live outside the framework of Torah, I put myself in the position of someone outside the Torah in order to win those outside the Torah. Although I myself am not outside the framework of God's Torah, but within the framework of Torah, as upheld by the Messiah. With the weak, I became weak in order to win the weak. With all kinds of people, I have become all kinds of things, so that in all kinds of circumstances, I might save at least some of them. If we want to witness to people, for goodness sake, we got to speak their language. That's a simple thing to do. Number 5, be at peace and stop acting as if it hinges on you. Being defensive puts people on the offense. Reside in the assurance of your shalom. It is useless to argue. Let them talk out all they think and feel, and you listen and you nod. Don't get defensive. That shows that your case is weak. Show your assurance instead. If they ask you a question, be prepared to answer, but you can do so in a manner in line with the fruits of the Spirit. Be at peace, and when they're done talking, you just say, keep reading the Word. We have to learn to differentiate when someone is seeking and someone is just condemning. Because, you have people just coming at you condemning. They've already made up their mind about you. They have no idea what you're doing, what your walk is like, and they don't care. They've made up their mind about you. All right, I'm good. Like Katie said, their opinion ain't none of my business. I've got other people that I'm trying to witness to here that are listening to me. I work on the internet, and that's a lot. We see, it's kind of like the cesspool of humanity at times. And I get these, every now and then you get a comment on my website, and there's been some horrifying comments, truly very, very mean-spirited. And at first, the first couple years of blogging, when I would get one of these, it would just devastate me. And I would go to the follower and I'd say, why aren't you keeping me from these things? Why are you letting me have these comments? Why don't you protect me from these? I'm trying to do what you want me to do. I'm trying to live how you want me to live. And I felt it in my soul one day. It's just like I heard, if I send you 1,000 positive comments for every one negative comment, and you choose to focus on the negative, who's got the problem? Ooh. Yeah, that hit me hard. Number 6, step out of the way. They don't need to hear this from us. And now listen to what I mean by this. A word from us is easily dismissed, and rightfully so. They need to hear it directly from Him. They need to be in His Word, seeing that He is the one saying it, so that when they dismiss it, they're facing who they're actually dismissing. We are not trying to get people to follow us. We're trying to get them to follow Him. And we have to really, we kind of tend to seek a lot of validation that way, I think, because being set apart is such a crazy way to live, okay? We have a cookie cutter world. And if you join this church, then you believe this, and this. And if you join this church, you believe this, and this. And now we're here. And we realize our Father doesn't fit in a box. And so we can't fit in a box. I spent probably the first year of this walk desperately trying to find some label I can apply to myself. So when people say, what do you believe? I can say, well, and I tried out all the labels. I tried them all out. And then nothing worked. Nothing fit. And my husband said one day, he's like, the more we're in this, don't you realize that it's not this way and it's not that way? The path is so narrow. It's right down the middle. And I think we come into seeing all this and we automatically go find the largest group that makes sense that we can find, and we just attach ourselves to them because that's what we're used to doing. But we're not trying to get them to follow us. That is very important. And we also need to really understand and take it to soul. That's what I'm saying now instead of taking it to heart. Heart's deceitful above all things. I'm going to take something to my soul. We're okay if somebody doesn't walk it like we do. We're okay if somebody doesn't walk like we do. You can be my sister, and we can be walking things a little differently. And that's okay, because the Father has a purpose for each of us. I've not seen any two women in here who look identical. The Father has a purpose for each of us. Do not seek to be right. When you're witnessing to someone, never seek to be right, but instead join with them and seek what is right. Truth is truth, and it doesn't need our argument or our defense to make it so. We need to remember that we tend to consider things on our timeline, but the Father is working on a much longer timeline. That seed has already been planted, y'all. The seed's been planted. Number 7, we need to live by example. If you want to be a light that really stands out in our time, if you want to be that lamp on a hill, okay, you want to be a spotlight that is going to be so different and so set apart, I'm going to tell you the one thing you need to do. In 2019, be unoffendable. Be unoffendable. My goal is to be the least offended person you will ever meet. We have to be mindful of how something is received. One of the things I've learned from working on the internet is that people do not read the things I write or even hear the things I say based on my intent when I wrote or said them. They hear it based on their mood and their circumstances when they received it. You could say a comment, literally you could say, well, you have a good day. And it can be taken as, well, you have a good day, or, well, you have a good day. And then you've got like the world's worst hater because they think you just been, you know, totally different. As mature believers, we have a responsibility to consider how things are received. That's on us. And as mature believers, that's on us. To not take things personally. Knowing that when people see us doing something differently from them, and we've been here, y'all, to a person who is not mature spiritually, or not as mature. I don't want to say that we're all at different phases at different times. And I may be very spiritually mature in some aspects and more mature in others. So it's not a blanket statement. But people have a tendency when they see you doing something differently from them, they get offended. And that's really surprising. It's really hard to respond to. It could be that they're not wanting to get out of their comfort zone. A lot of times they just want to prove you wrong so they can justify that they don't want to ever have to do that. But it could also be conviction. My goal is to remain in a place where I'm encouraging them to stay in the Word. I'm not trying to get you to walk like I walk. I'm not trying to get you to wear zigzags. I'm not even trying to get you to keep Sabbath. I just want you to read this Word. I want to get you in the Word. Because what is more fruitful? What is more fruitful? Me railing against someone for keeping a holiday that contradicts His Word? Or me convincing someone to read His Word for themselves? If we help them form a relationship with His Word, that is a far greater door to usher them through. Do not take it personally. Even if they seem to be rejecting you, do not take it personally. Leave the door open. When they know you are a safe place, they'll come to you first. They may reject you now, but when you remain kind, when you continue to operate in the fruits of the Spirit, no matter how they've treated you, they know you're a safe place. The analogy that I gave the other day in the Facebook Live, I said, it's like we're a 2-gallon pitcher holding 4 gallons of grace. And we can't help everywhere we go. If we're mindful of all that grace we have, I was just kind of speaking off the cuff, and I said, everywhere we go, we're going to be sloshing grace on people. So just think, we're a 2-gallon pitcher holding 4 gallons of grace. Wrap your head around that, because that's where we should all be, in our head. 2-gallon pitcher, 4 gallons of grace. This life is a constant battle against flesh, and we have to recognize that this is no different. We can say it's admirable, we can say it's Spirit-led, we can say He knows our heart, but at the end of the day, we need to be like, ooh, am I really just kind of wanting to be right and kind of wanting to stick it to them, No. We love them, and we want them to experience this. And so my goal is to just get as many people in the Word as possible. When we discover the words of our Father, when we finally figure out what we've been missing, I liken it to building a house beginning with the attic. It's not going to work. And until you read all of this makes no sense. When we begin to see all this, we cannot forget how the example of our Messiah walking it out. We cannot forget grace. The Father, I tell you, He gives me 2 examples. I have seen what people, and I don't like the words Old Testament and New Testament. I think that's disrespectful. But for the sake of y'all know what I'm talking about, I'm going to use that. I have seen people with only the Old Testament ignore the lessons in the New. And I've seen a lot of them go around with that hammer hitting people over the head without grace and without compassion. Even though the Father has been a God of grace since Genesis 1. Father's always been a God of grace. When you read this, you see grace on every single page. And I've seen people who only cling to the New Testament and ignore all of that, completely without foundation. Just wandering around like a flag not even attached to a pole, just whipping around in the breeze. The Father gave us the wholeness of His Word. We have to take the wholeness of His Word. We cannot forget. We cannot. No matter the problem, no matter what you're dealing with, our default should always be, in every situation, to seek to love Him more. Every problem you encounter, seek to love Him more through it. When we are doing that, when we are seeking to love Him, our example will be apparent. One of the things I always tell people in my fellowship group, because we are so different, like every denomination under the sun. And there's people in there who aren't even believers. My requirement is that you have to want to read the Word and you have to be able to be a nice person. And if you want to read the Word, I told them, one of my videos, I said, I don't care if you're a raccoon, if you're literate and you want to read the Bible, come on. So I always tell them we are of one accord in many things. Don't be looking on your neighbor's paper. This is a discussion test. You ain't going to be able to just get an answer off of them. I always tell people, book open, eyes on the Father. Book open, eyes on the Father. I don't need to know what anybody's doing over here. I don't need to know what anybody's doing over here. If I'm glancing your way, it's going to be to love you. Book open, eyes on the Father. And when they see that we are a safe place, they will come to us. The Father will bring them to us. But in order for that to happen, we have to remain in Him in all of our interactions. Thank you very much.